series, and I understand what happened with, this man's family and everything like that. Nobody is saying that we're
That's
talking about the court. We're talking about basketball right
yeah,
now.
we are. We're not talking about whether it's right or not to shout anonymous.
That right. I don't want the fans to come up here talking about, well, what about film? No, that's not what we're talking about. We know how to separate things. At some point when we praise, Chris Paul, we always forget, that he consistently has these games where he has the 4 points, the 7 points, the 8 points, and he's not doing the things that, you were just praising him for 2 games ago or a game ago, and it's like he didn't play well, and I don't think it gets talked about enough that it has happened
It's
over the
getting
course
talked about
of
in this case.
well, let's just talk about it. I don't understand why we just can't keep the same energy. I don't get it. When it comes to him, we can't keep the same energy.
I'll tell
You
you why.
know?
I'll tell you why we can't keep the same energy. The same reason that he can't keep the same energy, which is that he's 38 years old. He's old. That's why we can't keep the same energy. Just like Wesley Matthews can't keep the same energy if he's running laterally. When you're that old, you can't keep the same energy, and you're on all the State Farm commercials, and you're doing all kinds of things. Of course, it's hard to keep the same energy. Zach, I'm going to get to you the moment I get off my Chris Paul take, because I did watch this game dribble to dribble as well. This was the worst Chris Paul game that I've ever seen, and I have been watching Chris Paul for the better
Oh
part.
no, that's not the worst. 2019 Game 5.
Well, this one for
against
me,
the Warriors.
this one was for me the worst. Chris Paul was getting everything called on him and making some of the dumbest fouls that I've ever seen. Some of them didn't even look like fouls, but it's irrelevant if you know that they're looking at you in that series in the ref's way. You have to be cognizant of that. You have to stay out of the actions. And they were putting him in actions. He played 23 minutes and had 6 fouls. That's nuts. Whether you want to believe that he's a star, whether you want to say that he's good or that he's bad, all of that to the side. The idea that you're going to pick up a foul every 4 minutes, that's like bench player nonsense. That's not, you have to be much more cognizant as a superstar. So we are calling him out, at least on this podcast, that anybody who plays 23 minutes and picks up 6 fouls and is supposed to be the point guard or the engine of your team and just can't be cognizant of the way the refs are calling you. Like you have to be more aware. You have to be much more self-aware than Chris Paul was. And maybe it was because family stuff was getting in the way, right? Like, who can say? But I can say that keeping it just on the court, once he fouled out, after playing only 23 minutes, being in foul trouble the entire game, that discombobulated the Suns, and they crumbled from there. By the way, Dorian Finney-Smith and Brunson also had great games, and that's why we don't take credit away from the Mavs, at least not in this place. Dorian Finney-Smith was awesome. He was outstanding. But even if, even with that sort of aside, in this particular game, I think a lot of the blame falls on Chris Paul. Zach, you're first. Z, you're second.
So Nat knows that I'm a huge Chris Paul fan, huge Chris Paul fan. I played the position when I was playing. It wasn't a time I didn't watch his film. I think the issue, though, I will say this. Because of the issues he's had in the playoffs, people want to act like he just really sucks. I don't think there's any perspective. I think all things can be true, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, of course.
Yeah, so as far as the game goes...
Well, let me ask you this, Zach. Do you agree with my take that he has to be way the hell more cognizant of where he's at if he's got 5 fouls or playing 4 fouls?
No, I agree 100% because I was going to go a step further. He was horrible in game 3. Just out of sync, 7 turnovers. Just, I don't know what he was doing. And really because he has such a bad floor game, that's why they lost, along with, the Mavs role players shooting better at home. But he was so bad in game 3 as well. And he was even worse in game 4. That's why I'm going to come on here because Nat, we be in spaces talking. She knows how much I love Chris Paul. But the criticism is what the criticism is. I don't think it was family issues. He just mentally was not there. And now it's at a point now where we've seen him do this throughout his career in big moments. But let's give Jason Kidd some credit as well, because people were criticizing Kidd. They played a little bit more zone a little bit. But offensively, I don't know if he told Luka, the staff, but Luka went down on that block a little bit more. And then they put Luka at the nail like they used to do with Dirk Nowitzki, except for now Luka's a much better passer than Dirk. And those guys were shooting ready. Like they had their hands ready. The balls were hitting them right in the shot pocket, and they was locked and ready to score. And that's why they won the game, man. I thought it was a beautiful adjustment. And because when you have a Luka Doncic, you don't need big, crazy adjustments. Sometimes you just need small adjustments, small tweaks. And they got the contributions and the shooting that they need. I still think the Suns win in 7 because of the home court. But, boy, I didn't think the Mavericks were going to win these last 2 games because nothing I saw in the first 2 games from their role players gave me any consequence to think that they can have any confidence. Because I didn't think it was just Luka shooting a lot because I went back and watched game 2. The first 10 to 12 possessions, JB, he was passing the ball. You could just tell that the Mavericks role players just wasn't ready. And then Jalen Brunson got into foul trouble, and then Luka had to start shooting again. So, but if their players are going to play like that and travel to Phoenix, Phoenix could be in trouble, man, because they had the best player in the series in Luka Doncic.
Zach, before I go to Z, and also before the motivational message, because we're nearing the end of our time, I'm going to give Z a chance to speak before I do. The next time you host a podcast, if you could invite me on, I want to give you what I think to be a pretty hot take, that I think that Dorian Finney-Smith is the real number 2 option behind Luka and not Jalen Brunson. I get it that Jalen Brunson gets all the shine, but I would love to. I'd love to.
You just got a new friend. I think the same thing, but I ain't gonna lie. I don't have confidence to tweet that because I'm already fighting for credibility sometimes. So I felt like if I tweeted that, people think I'm crazy. But I think the same exact thing. The same exact thing, because his defense with his ability to shoot the 3 now, that's why I said in the moment, them paying him, they actually got off cheap. Because I think he's a $75 million player. Because now he can shoot it. I agree with you 100%.
All right, Z, you're going to go. And then before I let Z go, everybody should stay for today's motivational message because it's a fun one. And I took a lot of pride writing it. So, Z, you're going, and then I'm going to give the motivational message, and we'll close out. Go, Z.
For me, the biggest takeaway, I had 2 takeaways from that game. Number 1, the Suns' offense completely the Mavs' offense completely dissected the Suns' defense. That was the primary reason why they won that game. Secondly, Monty Williams had a horrendous coaching night. There is no way that you allow Luka to hunt down Cameron Payne possession after possession, and you're unable to make any sort of adjustments on the defensive end, and they were getting any shots they wanted. I'm hoping that they're able to make those adjustments going back in Game 5. I expect the Suns to win Game 5, but if they lose Game 5, then they're going to lose the series.
Okay. I'm willing to give, directly responding to you, I'm willing to give Monty Williams. Sorry, I said Monty Morris. We're not in Denver anymore. I'm willing to give Monty Williams a little bit of a pass on this game. I agree with you, though, that if you can't make adjustments in Game 5 to what the Mavericks were trying to do to you on defense, particularly what they were doing to DeAndre Ayton on offense when they were getting the ball funneled into DeAndre Ayton and making him have to put the ball on the floor where he needs to tighten his handle, then yeah, I think that Monty Williams will start to get criticized, and probably rightfully so. Before I do my motivational message, I want to thank everybody for coming in today. I know that this is, I guess, early, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern, but I always appreciate everybody coming in. And I also wanted to shout, I already shouted out all of my favorite podcasts. Zach, Facts and Stacks, the Hoop Spaces podcast, all of those spaces. If you can join them throughout the day, it's really, really appreciated. So now I'm going to get to my motivational message, and then we will close the show. I like to preach accountability in my motivational messages. And you'll notice that the name of the podcast today is called Beware of Objects in the Rearview Mirror. I remember back on Friday hearing that the 76ers were done, that they didn't have a chance. I remember hearing that the Memphis Grizzlies, were good, but they just weren't going to be able to hang with the Warriors. I remember the Dallas Mavericks just being barbecue chicken, that they were done, that it didn't even matter, right? And the spotlight should be on me, right? because I'm the one who predicted the Celtics in 6, even though they're down 2-1 in this series, aren't I? Although I did say they were going to lose game 3, I'm the one who pounded my chest and called Javon Carter Celtic garbage. So shouldn't I be apologizing to Javon Carter today? I'm the one who said Jason Tatum was a superstar and he had a horrible game 3. I should be the one who's raising my hand and saying Jason Tatum is garbage and he's no good. But if you listen to me, you heard me say that it was always going to be close, that it was always going to be two tough teams battling each other, but that I feel that missing Chris Middleton is going to be the difference. And the Celtics did lose. But if the foul was called correctly, then Marcus Smart should have shot 3 free throws, leaving the Bucks somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 seconds to call a last-second play to win the game. Instead, he shot 2 free throws. And had there been a half a second left, the Celtics would have gone up to overtime. And it isn't just me criticizing the officials, is it? You listen to this whole podcast, it's GM John Horst of the Bucks, it's Celtics head coach Ime Udoka, and you know Jason Tatum is ready to cry about how hard the officials are on him. So we know we're going to get that in game 4 because he's done that in every other game these playoffs. And I refuse to call Javon Carter anything but saltier garbage, having played 2 minutes for 0 points with 1 rebound and no assists. I double down on anyone who thinks they can play 90 feet of defense against these Celtics and win the game. And here's the good news. The Bucks abandoned that strategy, didn't they, in game 3? I am the one who was deeply concerned about Joel Embiid, but I'm also the one who sat on the podium and said that James Harden was not washed and that he was still good when all the attention wasn't solely focused on him. And Harden responded with 31.7 rebounds and 9 assists against the Miami Heat. He scored 0 points in the first quarter. But I'm also the same person that said it might not be fair to expect the Mavericks to grow up between series at light speed on the road. And you saw Jalen Brunson and Dorian Finney-Smith have big games. In fact, only the Grizzlies-Warriors series seems to be in a place where we, as NBA fans, can have a semblance of seriousness in our predictions because that's the one where Ja Morant is injured and unlikely to play game 4. Not because the Grizz and Dubs weren't 2 evenly matched teams in game 2 at Oracle when Dillon Brooks was missing in game 3. No, what you've learned is that when you have 2 tough teams facing off against each other, like you do in the second round of the playoffs, it's unwise to jump on Twitter and proclaim series to be over when you're in game 1 or game 2. Do you think the Heat won't make adjustments? What about the Celtics tonight? You already have my prediction that I think the Celtics are going to win game 4. Do we think that the Suns won't be better if in the final 8 minutes of the game, Chris Paul is on the floor instead of in a State Farm commercial? No. You're in the second round of the playoffs, arguably the best playoffs that I've ever seen. And these series aren't over until they're actually over. So today, I'm not going to call myself out. I'm going to call Carlton Smith out. Anybody who's on our NBA reminders conversation. And I'm going to predict that the Celtics are going to win tonight and that we'll be back here at 8 a.m. tomorrow talking about how maybe Carlton Smith should calm down before declaring Jason Tatum to be junk like he did all of Saturday evening to the NBA Now reminders conversation instead of hosting his own podcast, which is what I told him to do. And tomorrow morning, for all of those who listened all the way through this morning's motivational message and want to call me out tomorrow if I'm wrong and declare Milwaukee the Beast of the East, then I'll be here on Tuesday morning because I host a podcast at a normal fucking time at 8 a.m. Eastern. I am not hosting a podcast at midnight Central Time or 1 a.m. Eastern where I can talk nonsense to Celtics fans because everyone is asleep. Children, families, we're asleep at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't duck smoke. I also don't talk smoke. Do I think the Celtics will win tonight? Sure I do. If the Bucks win tonight, will I crawl into a cave and never talk NBA again? No. I won't. In fact, tomorrow morning, if the Celtics lose, barring some nonsense injury where it's like Jason Tatum went down or Jaylen Brown went down, and it was such a giant injury that you're just like, okay, well, obviously they're going to lose, right? And by the way, same thing if somebody goes down for the Bucks, right? If Brook Lopez goes down, if Drew Holiday goes down, or Giannis goes down, then I'm not going to be sitting here being like, oh yeah, well the Celtics are clearly the better team. No, gigantic injuries are gigantic injuries. It doesn't make any difference, what your predictions are if there are gigantic injuries. If the Celtics lose, I will be here at 8 a.m. If the Celtics win, I'll be here at 8 a.m. because I'm accountable at a normal time. That's the motivational message. You all were here at a normal time, and anybody who hosts the podcast at midnight or 1 a.m. is not holding themselves accountable. Have a wonderful morning. I want to call out all of the people who helped me today. Nish, Zach, Z, Ovo. I'm sorry.